Hello everyone, this is Dabao Watch Specialist as you know. Today, we're here together to review a custom modified wristwatch that took nearly a year to complete. The client placed the order with me in August 2022 and now it's August 2024. It took me a full year to finally deliver this watch to him. What's even more gratifying is that this client waited almost an entire year for it. He still didn't give up. When I was working on the watch, I told him, "Bro, this watch has taken a whole year to make. I don't know if you still want it. If you don't, I can understand." But the client said, "I've already waited this long, so I might as well keep waiting." That's why this is such a rare and special custom modified watch. Alright, today I'm going to share this review with everyone. Many watch enthusiasts might look at this and think, isn't this just an Audemars Piguet 15460? Just a DLC blacked out 15460, nothing special. But actually, this isn't a blacked out version, it's a lead grey 15460. It's a gunmetal grey with a fine matte finish, not pure black. Let me show you a pure black one so you can feel the difference. This one here is a pure black, while the other is gunmetal grey. Black and grey are two completely different looks and textures. We've done a lot of reviews on the Royal Oak series. If you're interested, you can check out our previous reviews, including those on the so-called integrated movement versions from factories like APS and ZF, as well as the NTPT carbon fiber material Royal Oak we covered not long ago. We've done a lot of reviews on all of these. This time though, it's a completely new model, a lead grey blue dial 1530, custom made by Blaken. First, let's talk about the overall specs of this watch. The entire watch, whether it's the strap, the case, or the clasp, has been given a fine matte gunmetal grey finish. Secondly, the screws have been refinished as well. We repolished them, including the bezel, which we also remachined. After the screws were polished and finished in gunmetal grey, they still fit perfectly and seamlessly, without any rough marks or imperfections at all. Next, for the meticulously crafted dial, we've carefully customized a truly blackened dial, a deep, rich blue, with a very low saturation, making it exceptionally close to the original version's exquisite blue dial. At the 6 o'clock position, we've added the word blackened in English, and for the hands, we've customized a spare set. Our spare hands have a certain thickness, and the polishing marks on them are very distinct, with absolutely no rough edges. There is absolutely no roughness, and secondly, for the case, we used the ZF Factory's case, which has undergone a meticulous 24-step polishing process, as mentioned before, so overall, the configuration of this watch is very high-end, and as for the movement, we have used it's an original open mode, integrated 3E20 movement, specifically the 3120 movement. This includes the engraved yellow Royal Oak lettering on the case back, as well as the model identification, all of which are preserved in full detail and with great finesse. This is the overall configuration of this watch. Now, going back to our initial topic, why does it take a whole year to get this watch? It's not just because the craftsmanship is extremely difficult, although that's part of it. The main reason is that when we want to do gunmetal grey or black plating and all these processes, it's not as simple as just handing over a watch and the manufacturer agreeing to do it. They need to accumulate enough orders first. It's similar to having a processing furnace, a big furnace. The cost of firing up the furnace for just one watch is very high, so making only one watch at a time would be too expensive. That's why they need to accumulate orders and wait. For example, they need to process 10 watch cases in one batch to make the cost manageable, so that the price is acceptable to customers. So they wait until they've gathered enough demand for 10 sets, and then they fire up the furnace all at once to process them together. So, during this process, in order to make this finely sandblasted gunmetal grey case, bracelet and case back, we waited an entire year just to gather enough quantity to do a batch production. Otherwise, the price of this watch would have been sky high. Exactly, sky high. So, let me also share with everyone here. What we call customization usually refers to some personalized adjustments in the details, but for things like the watch case or bracelet, which require large-scale machinery to process, they also need to be handled in batches. If you only make a single piece, the cost is extremely high. I just want to make this clear to everyone. So, regarding this watch, if anyone wants to have one made, if you like it, this gunmetal grey texture is really unique, very youthful, and the color is special. If you like it, you really need to be able to wait because the production time will be quite long, but we can do it. For example, with the Blaken Submariner, we've made a lot of them. The reason why we can finish something like that in just a month or even in 20 days is because the volume is quite large. It doesn't take us long to process a whole batch at once. So for those models, the turnaround time is relatively shorter, but for these gunmetal grey ones, which are rarer, more niche, and have a more unique style, the processing time and cost for these kinds of arm colors will be a bit higher. You see, after our case is polished a second time, even after we've done this gunmetal grey treatment, it's still The range of movement is still quite impressive, so for people with smaller wrists, wearing it will also feel relatively comfortable. After we've polished the edges of the strap a second time, there's no obvious sharpness or cutting sensation. It's very smooth to the touch. Plus, with the addition of this fine matte gunmetal grey coating, the whole watch looks very cool and sophisticated, exuding a cold high-end vibe. A very refined and high-end look. Now, regarding the movement, I won't go into too much detail here. The 310 movement, with all its functions, thickness, and structure, can achieve the same effect as the original version. We can take a look at its realistic movement structure, including its oscillating arm support. The only slight shortcoming, to be honest, is that the only slight flaw is that the color in this picture is still a bit more yellow compared to the original. The original Gold 400 series is more rose gold, and this slightly reddish gemstone color is also accurate. The oscillating arm, including this core small gear, the golden small gear here, is also fully functional and can move just like the real thing. Alright, all the details, including the engravings, are also very beautiful. The engravings by Abbey, including the galloping horse and pagoda above, as well as the three-dimensional carvings of the flying pigeon and gorilla, are all exquisitely done. The brushed finish throughout the image is also fine enough, and the sunburst pattern on the automatic rotor's axis is well executed too. All the details are handled quite well, but if you compare it to the original, the level of refinement is still just a little bit lacking. However, considering the price and craftsmanship at this level, it currently offers a high cost-performance ratio, and aside from the original, it's one of the best options on the market. Let's go ahead and review the watch for him, and take a look at the overall details and style of the watch. This kind of fine matte finish is very cool and striking. But the only drawback of this material is that when you touch it, you see, just a touch with your hand can easily leave marks. These marks have an oily feel, a kind of greasy sensation, and some fingerprints. These are traces left after your hand touches it, but it can be cleaned off very easily. Also, the font here, the engraved markings, are preserved very clearly. Even every tiny screw, including the small screws on the clasp, we make sure to polish them all before applying the gunmetal finish. Once it's assembled, it's also extremely comfortable to wear, and the overall details are very beautiful. There really isn't much more to share about this watch. Mainly, I wanted to talk to everyone about this style. After all, across the entire internet, no one has reviewed this watch yet, so we can consider this a first release, a true first release. Including the Blaken printing at the 6 o'clock position on the dial, it also has a three-dimensional feel. On this kind of diamond pattern texture, the black printing is applied directly and sharply. Next, let's look at the packaging we specified. You can see that from any angle, you won't find any obvious burrs like you would with ZF or APS. There aren't any. Last time at the theater, right? There's no noticeable burrs at all, and during assembly, the hands weren't scratched or deformed in any way. Even the tail of the second hand, which is shaped like a little club or a toothbrush, we've managed to achieve a solid, authentic look for the hand's axis as well. The small white dot on the axis is also very clear and obvious. You can see that the real piece has no burrs at all, including the alignment of the dial markers we've made. It's perfectly straight, with no gaps whatsoever. If you've ever bought watches from those letter factories, you'll notice, especially at the 12 o'clock position, the gap between these two hour markers is uneven, and there can also be some height differences between the upper and lower markers. But with our meticulous refinement and handling, this issue absolutely does not exist. Every marker is installed perfectly straight, and the edges are flawless, no burrs at all, and the polishing is beautiful. The custom modifications we make can withstand close inspection with a magnifying glass for the details. The essential difference between genuine and fake lies in the subtle differences in the tiniest details. When these small differences accumulate, the result is a world of difference. As for this screw, we've polished it finely, and the matte texture is absolutely beautiful. Okay, that's about all I have to share with you regarding this watch. After all, this is one of our classic models, and many watch enthusiasts are extremely familiar with this integrated 15400. Finally, let me show you how it looks on the wrist. The 41mm case diameter is very friendly for many of us with Asian wrists, and as you can see, it looks quite special when worn. For the gunmetal grey case, this time the owner chose a blue dial. With the 15400, we can go with black, white or grey dials as well. Personally, I think if the dial were grey, a light grey dial with a dark grey case and strap, that combination would look even more sophisticated. So if any of you are willing to give it a try, you can come to Dabao and try choosing a grey dial to assemble with this kind of configuration. If your budget allows, I also recommend directly installing the genuine dial and hands. Then the quality of this watch will be absolutely unbeatable. Blaken has custom made the genuine dial and hands for the 1530 first generation, which is quite expensive. That's basically all for the review of the Square watch. Beyond is unique and comfortable. See you in the next episode.